Myles Garrett, first time in camp as well. Of course, he wasn't, and obviously we get why he wasn't at volunteer mini camp. But he's of course at mandatory mini camp. And before we get to that, Anthony's got something for us.
Yeah, guys, I want to remind everybody that this is brought to you by Buckeye State Credit Union. If you haven't heard of them, meet your new favorite financial partner. Buckeye State Credit Union is a local institution offering everything from checking accounts to home equity lines of credit and auto loans with some of the lowest rates in Northeast Ohio. Their Cleveland branch in Shaker Heights, which is one of the 5 locations across the states, make it easier to find one near you. And if you can't get to a branch, it's no problem. They make banking super easy through the digital banking app. What sets them apart? They make banking personal and convenient. At Buckeye, their focus is you. Their core values, connect, simply, adapt, guide everything that they do. They bring people together, cut through the clutter, and are innovative. To learn more, visit buckeyecu.org. Buckeye State Credit Union, your money simplified.
All right, Anthony. So Myles Garrett spoke yesterday. Guys, he talked about the comments from Jim Schwartz. He talked about trying to get Nick Chubb back to Cleveland, which obviously, didn't happen. What'd you think, Mike, of what he had to say about Jim Schwartz's comments?
Before I get into what he said about Jim Schwartz's comments, there are certain people, we talk about this like Giannis, that just defy the logic of the human species. Myles Garrett beat the gym. Like, we could all work out as much as we want. We could take as much steroids as we want. We could...
Not that you're accusing him of taking steroids.
No, but we could never look like... I just get pissed off every time I see Myles Garrett and the Browns post a picture of him flexing, and I'm like, how do you block this guy? Like, it just looks like a different specimen than everyone else.
He looks very unlike any other player.
In regards to what he said about Jim Schwartz, in case you missed what Jim Schwartz said, Jim Schwartz basically last week at OTA said, Myles went through the whole Radio Row campaign, the trade request, the big contract. They expect the best from him this year, and Myles came out and said, yeah, I expect the best from me too. On paper, at a minimum, a defensive line of Myles alongside a healthy Mike Hall, a top 5 overall pick in defensive tackle Mason Graham, and either Alex Wright, JTS, the former first-round pick they signed in.
By the way, all those guys unproven.
But I'm saying,
all unproven.
In theory, though,
there's talent, but they're all unproven.
That could be the most talented front he's played with, and we've seen all the advanced analytics. I don't have them in front of me, but Myles gets double-teamed more than any other player in football. If some of those other guys, not all of them, but 2 of the 3, 3 of the 5, however you want to parse that up, if they can generate relative consistent pressure, it should open up so many more opportunities for Myles to attack one-on-one. And we talked about his sacks. He has 16 he had 16 2 years in a row, then he had 14 last year. He's got 40, 45 over the last couple of years.
46.
There's no reason why Myles Garrett shouldn't be able to set a career record in sacks this season if the other guys on the defensive line are able to live up to the pressure we think they can. They also signed Malik Collins this offseason, their biggest free agent signing, who is a plus pass rusher from the interior. So I like Jim Schwartz putting the pressure on Myles Garrett. I like Myles Garrett accepting the pressure from Jim Schwartz and understanding with said contract comes said responsibilities. And there's no reason, if things fall right, that Myles Garrett can't put up a career year, even though he's 8-9 years into his NFL tenure.
I think there's mutual respect between Schwartz and Myles. And, Myles, I think, handled it pretty well. I think Jim Schwartz was right. I mean, he's not really calling him out. I mean, I guess he sort of is to some degree, but he's not being a dick about it.
He's just challenging
He's just challenging his best player, which is what really good coaches should do. And I don't care if you're a pro or not. You should be challenged every single day. And if you are the best player, then you should be totally fine with being challenged because you should be the best at everything. And also be the best at taking criticism and knowing how to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I've got this responsibility to be the guy, and so it's my job to go out here and not only lead. He doesn't have to be a vocal leader because that's not his style. I get that, but he can lead by example, and by example I mean every snap. Go.
Yeah, I thought his response to Jim Schwartz was great because he could have been a little annoyed by what Jim Schwartz said.
I think they have a good relationship.
But I think they have. I don't think Jim Schwartz would have said what he said about his best player if he didn't feel confident that his relationship with Myles would lead Myles to understand what he was doing.
My estimation is that and this, I have nothing to back this up, but I think he may have already been told that behind the scenes, and he just sort of told the media, this is what we've talked about, without saying we've talked about it.
Yeah.
And to your point, there's nothing wrong with challenging your best player to be the best.
Yeah.
That's you think Kobe didn't want to be challenged?
My coaches challenge me all the time, even in high school, because obviously in high school I was the best player on the team. or one of them, and it was my job to be a leader. And then at Ohio State, developed into a leader, becoming a captain, and the coaching staff asked a lot of me, which I loved, and it made me step my game up in terms of being a leader and doing the right things.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think every player wants to be given that responsibility because it's a sign of respect. And Myles Garrett is capable. There's nothing he's not capable of in the game of football.
Exactly.
Nothing. He is. And I don't like using the term God-given talent because in a way it diminishes what he's done and how hard he works and what he does to accomplish what he. Yes, he's a physical specimen, but he didn't just get there eating, sitting with me eating Doritos and potato chips. He's been working his ass off his entire life to get. Yes, he had some physical advantages that other people didn't have, but he could have wasted them. There's been plenty of people that have. He hasn't. He's a fantastic talent. Now, I'm not nearly as convinced as you are that he has this great talent around him. You're naming all these names of guys who have accomplished essentially nothing in the NFL.
But they do have potential.
Okay, but, Jadeveon Clowney played with. That guy was the number 1 pick in the draft.
Fair.
And he's had, some success in the NFL, not tremendous. I mean, Mason Graham, there should be high expectations. I certainly have high expectations. He's the 5th pick in the draft, but he's still a rookie. And unless Mason Graham in particular or one of the defensive tackles makes a massive impact, nothing's going to change. Nobody's early in the season.
No,
they're not going to double team Myles Garrett less because of Mason Graham.
Right.
But that means the interior guys are going to get one-on-one opportunities, and if they can succeed, that's when the whole offensive line focus shifts.
Concede, as you said, they got to be consistent. They got to be. One of the tackles, and obviously Mason Graham is the most likely, has got to become at some point. It's maybe unfair to say this right away. A dominant force.
Yeah.
That's the only way you could take any level of pressure or double team off of Myles Garrett, because Myles Garrett is without a doubt, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, certainly you. I don't care about T.J. Watt, Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby. He is forget arguing who's the best player. I'll tell you this. There's no more feared player in the NFL.
No.
If you're an offensive coordinator, you are more concerned with Myles Garrett than any pass rusher in the league, period, end of conversation. That's it. So the only possible way you're going to change your game plan at all, and it might not happen no matter how good Mason Graham is, but he's got to, at some point, reach a Pro Bowl level. That's the only way you've got any hope of taking something away from Myles Garrett, in terms of double teams.
You remember in 23, Jim Schwartz's first year here when the Browns had that number 1 ranked defense? They moved Myles around way more than I think they did last year. I always go back to week 1 against the Bengals.
That went away, I think.
Yeah, when he was doing the crossover in front of Joe Burrow, and they motioned him, and then I think it was Tennessee, then motioned back and then called a timeout.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing a ton of that last year, and I'm curious if that was partly because they didn't think they had the other horses on the defensive line to allow Myles the freedom and the creativity to attack from other areas besides the edge, or if they'll go back to more of a mix and match, let Myles pick his matchup and everyone else adjust this year.
Why do you think, Dustin, that they were more, at least it seemed they were more creative with Myles Garrett in 23 than 24? Because they were moving him around more in 23, and last year it just felt like they were not doing that very often.
I mean, it's a question I'd love to be able to answer.
Yeah, I don't know how you can answer
I have
that.
no way of like other than just guessing
Yeah.
about certain scenarios or whatever. But no, I don't know. I mean, either way, we know Myles Garrett's going to have a great year. He always has a great year. But there's a difference, I think, between because he always puts up the numbers every single year, no matter what. But I love that the crossover, and then he gets
It's
the
such
sack.
a sick, such
it's
a
just
sick
like,
play.
oh yeah. Let me give me that, and then. Thank you, Joe Burrow.
The Bengals center is like
I can watch this all
crapping
day.
himself right now.
Oh, he is crapping his pants.
Yeah.
No, I mean he's
He's
gonna.
able to crossover and a Euro step, by the way.
Yeah,
Watch the one
he
left
is-
and then go right.
Oh my God, dude, his footwork is so good.
Look at the athleticism difference between him and the Bengals
He's
center.
playing basketball, and then he decides I'm going to just sack Joe Burrow.
Did he sack him on that play? Did he?
No,
I mean, it looks like he's about to.
I think
but-
Burrow ended up throwing it away.
Okay.
I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but I don't believe that.
But he got immediate pressure on him.
He blew up the play. He eviscerated whatever Cincinnati wanted to do offensively.
That's
this
right.
Play. That is a quick pressure win for Myles Garrett 100 out of 100 times. And I hope they go back to doing more of that. I feel like Myles is at his best with more freedom.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's to your point, Adam.
Yeah.
And I just want to comment on what you said.
Yeah.
He is the most feared player in the league.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. I mean,
who else would be more feared?
I don't know. I don't know who anybody could. Like, Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks, but nobody thinks it. Like, and he's a really good player,
Yeah.
but nobody thinks of Trey Hendrickson. T.J. Watt, as great as he is, he's had a lot of help on that D line.
Micah Parsons might be the only one even in that stratosphere.
Maybe.
But he's not.
Miles,
But he's
Myles
just not.
Garrett.
He's
He's
not.
Myles
He's not
Garrett.
Myles Garrett. He doesn't look like Myles Garrett. He doesn't have that. Like Myles Garrett, almost is a little scary because
Yeah.
he's so unique in his personality.
Right.
Where he's like kind of this like quiet guy, but he's also deep down inside a stone cold killer.
Yeah.
He's a killer who likes poetry and dinosaurs.
He talks about the quarterback graveyard.
He mentioned that with Aaron Rodgers last night.
He's like a psychopath, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
Which in a good way. You know what I mean?
What's
Like
that,
I don't think he's gonna kill anybody.
No, not-
But
yeah.
I think that he's like borderline, a little crazy.
Yeah,
Which
he
is good.
kinda is in a good football
Yes.
way. Yes, he's a little. Yeah, he's scary, no doubt. I mean, and there's not a lot that's going to scare another football player, but when you have a guy with that size and strength and that athletic ability, I don't know that we've seen that very often.
Dude, Myles Garrett
Yeah.
could wear a tutu and play defensive end, and everyone in the league would be scared of that guy.
It's a great line.
We got to do that. You know what? If anybody would do it, it'd be Myles Garrett. That guy don't care.
No.
Like, he don't care. Like, in some ways, he's a nerd.
Yes.
He likes and there's nothing
Right?
wrong, there's nothing wrong with dinosaurs and poetry and
Yeah.
cartoons and anime.
Yeah.
Miles is into that kind of stuff. He's been into that kind of stuff since he was in high school.
Mike, I'm going to ask you a trivia question. What dinosaur killed the most humans?
It's a trick question. An
Zero.
alligator.
Is it chicken?
It's zero. You know why?
Because
Dinosaurs
they
didn't
weren't
exist?
around with humans.
Yeah, never. They didn't exist at the same time.
Well, that's why I said alligators. Alligators are a great descendant.
Yeah, fair enough. So are birds, descendants of dinosaurs too. But there's your history lesson for the day.
What do you think of
Yeah.
Myles Garrett when he was asked about Aaron Rodgers joining the AFC North?
And he said he wanted to put him in the quarterback graveyard.
It's a great opportunity to put him right in the quarterback graveyard.
So to be in the graveyard, you have to be sacked by him.
Yeah.
Sacked by Myles Garrett.
Remember he
sacked
did that
Rodgers?
for Halloween?
I know that, but he's
Yeah,
never
yeah.
sacked Rodgers ever.
How many times did
In,
I don't
in
know.
9 years, he's never sacked Aaron Rodgers.
You'd think he played him.
Let me look up his game log against.
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking.
Yeah,
like,
you would
has he
assume-
never sacked Aaron Rodgers?
I wonder if. Yeah, that seems impossible to believe. I mean, he probably hasn't played him that much, but
They played him at least a few times.
yeah, you know, over those amount of years, you're going to play every team at least twice. Well, no, you play the NFC divisions every 4 years.
I mean,
so,
I
yeah.
know they played him on Christmas one year.
So
Yeah.
according to what I looked up here, he's
Yeah.
played him once when he was still in Green Bay in 2021.
Was that the Christmas
game?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a Christmas game.
And did he have a
Was there a
sack?
sack or no?
No.
Okay, so then that's,
All right,
that's the
so
deal.
he only played
He's got a
once.
sack.
Yeah,
He's never sacked.
maybe one of them was hurt for the other time they played. They must have played the Packers at least one other time, and then they didn't. The Browns didn't play the Jets last year.
And he was out for 2 years.
What
Because
do you mean he was out?
Rodgers missed all of 23.
Right. Then he missed some time. So yeah, only played one. All right, so he's got to get him in the graveyard. He'll get potentially 2 shots. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers can make it through the whole season.
I just love the outwardness
Yeah.
of which Miles comes out and says, "Yeah, I can't wait to put him in the graveyard."
Yeah. He's
we're
not
not-
afraid. He's
he's
gotten
not- yeah.
much
Yes.
talkier in terms of.
I was gonna say it
you
feels
know,
like even in the 3 years we've been here, and
Yeah.
that knew a little bit of
Well, I
Miles
mean,
from
at
his
this
A&M
point, he's
times.
earned the right to be able to do that. No
Yeah.
one's going to
Yeah.
challenge him on it. No one's going to be like, "Oh, Myles Garrett, who does he think he is? This guy."
Yeah, right.
I mean,
But there are some guys that are so afraid to say anything along those
Yeah,
lines
yeah,
because
yeah.
it can be turned into bulletin board material that they refuse, even if they're at the
boy,
highest of high
I
status.
think he sure came out of his shell last year during this negotiations.
Yeah.
You know,
Big
at the
time,
Super
yeah.
Bowl when he did the Rich Eisen thing.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like
kinda-
I feel like he really stepped out of his comfort zone to
Yeah.
become. I mean, honestly, like the things that he was saying, I'm like, that's kind of out of character for
Yeah.
him.
I think he started to do it last season because I think he was publicly trash talking more than we'd ever seen before, and then he took it to another level with the off season.
Okay, so let me.
conversations.
You guys know I'm going to make a tennis little reference here,
Yeah.
especially after the greatest tennis match of all time on Sunday
That was crazy.
between Carlos Alcaraz and Sinner. there's a player. He's old now. Novak.
That's a bold statement, by the way. Greatest tennis match of all time.
I think. I mean, there's been a couple other really good ones
Yeah.
that come to mind. 2019 Wimbledon comes to mind.
I would say that's the one I think.
2012 Aussie. But either way, I don't want to bore you on these great matches.
That was
but
talking
but
tennis.
I want to make the point about how, Novak Djokovic is one of those guys who it makes me think of Myles Garrett, because as he got older, he started becoming a little cockier. Because he started kind of beating up on the young guys, and to the point where he would actually just win points by his aura.
Right.
Aura, as the kids say these days. He aura farms, as my daughter would say. No, but that's
Aura farms?
Aura farms, yeah.
Creating that mean?
Creating aura.
Yeah.
I don't get it either, Bull.
Yeah,
I never heard of that.
I don't
Okay,
know. Ask
go
your
ahead.
son about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's where Myles is at now, and this is what, his 9th year or 10th year coming up.
He was drafted in 17.
Yeah, so 9th year.
Ninth year, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, screw it. I mean, I've accomplished basically everything in this league outside of winning the title, and I can talk shit.
Yeah.
And I can back it up, and there ain't a person in this league that's going to say otherwise.
The only thing he doesn't have the power to do is apparently influence Andrew Berry on what they should do with some of the roster moves. Because he did say yesterday, too, and maybe the most interesting little tidbit that came out of his press conference was he lobbied Andrew Berry to bring back Nick Chubb.
That's just him being a good friend.
Right. I mean, listen, the ship had sailed after the draft. That was the final straw. But you know what? I didn't think about this initially, but it seems like maybe Nick Chubb wanted to go. Like,
does Nick Chubb want to be the 3rd-tier running back here in Cleveland, where he'd been the man?
No, on a bad team.
Yeah.
Houston's got a good team.
I think it's a good spot for him to sort of, move into this new role, which is going to be, you're going to be like a 3rd down back veteran.
Yeah.
You're not going to get 1,000 yards probably.
No.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. But he's probably not going to get the carries to get 1,000 yards.
No, but
They
he's
drafted
playing,
a running
and
back,
he's playing with a contemporary back, like
Yeah.
a guy who came into the league around the same time he did.
Is it Mixon?
Mixon, yeah.
They
And, like,
drafted
who else do they have?
They traded up to draft Woody Marks out of USC in the 3rd round. So
Yeah.
that's their 3 running backs.
Right, but
And Woody Marks is more of a receiving back than he is like a power back. Like Nick Chubb.
I think they'll use Mixon, and I think they'll kind of split carries between Mixon and Chubb if Chubb is good, and then use the young guy as the 3rd down back maybe. And Mixon and Chubb both are guys who they don't need to have that many carries at this point in their career. But I'd love to see Nick Chubb, get that. If he has I wouldn't count him out of having some juice left.
Oh, I think he's
as
got
an 8-10 carry guy.
Yeah, and I think that he does have that sort of juice in him. But for like the Browns' perspective, what do you have to gain?
No.
I mean, if you have, it's like almost kind of sad if he's here. You know what I mean?
No, it was time to move on at this
It's
point.
good for both parties here.
I think we're all going to root for Nick Chubb to have success in Houston. There's no doubt about it. But and it's going to be weird. I mean, it's going to be weird seeing him wearing that Texans uniform.
And he's wearing 21 too, which was his high school number, not even the number he wore here. It looked weird yesterday seeing the Texans put out those clips of Nick Chubb in practice, and not.
That's
Yeah.
He wore 27 at Georgia, 21 in high school, 24
Or
here.
here, yeah, it's gonna be weird.
Yeah, somebody was saying to me they got to retire his number, but they don't really do that in football.
They're
You don't
putting him
retire.
in the Ring of Honor.
They'll obviously be in the ring.
Yeah.
of honor.
Retire his number.
Yeah, they don't retire football numbers. I mean, not really.
We've got multiple Hall of Famers, and they're not retired.
Yeah, you don't do that.
I mean, we had Jed Wills ask for Joe Thomas's number
Did you hear about this? Were you here
like
that
the day after he was drafted.
No, I didn't hear this.
Joe Thomas told us
I
the
mean,
story
talk
on
about
the
putting
show.
a guy in an awkward spot. Jed asking Joe Thomas for his number. Now, talk about a guy not getting
After
it.
he's retired?
Yeah. When the Browns drafted Jed Wills, Joe had already retired, and he asked him to. And the Browns had retired his number.
So Jed wore 73 at Alabama?
I guess so. I
I
can't
thought
remember.
he wore 71.
But he
I thought he
wanted.
was 71 too.
I'll look it up. Hold
But
on.
he wanted Joe's number, and Joe was like put in an awkward position. And then Stefanski said to him, "No, you can't have that number." Like
No, he wore
Stefanski
74.
took care of it.
At college?
He wore 74 in college. Thomas
Oh.
was 73 though.
I know.
Not
That's what I'm
74.
saying. Why, it makes no sense. Why would he
I think
want
he just
his number?
wanted the number.
I don't know, but that was.
I guess
that-
it should make
That
sense
actually
with
makes
that
it
guy.
worse.
But yeah, I mean that tells you, as we've often said, Dustin, you can't coach awareness.
You
So,
cannot, man. It's unfortunate for a lot of people.
That should have told us something. If we had known that story, because we didn't know that story until Joe told us that.
Joe had never told
Like a
that story
month ago,
before.
he was on the show and he
It
told us
was-
that. We were like, "Oh my god!"
First time he said
And
that.
Joe was like, wanted to be like, "No, you can't." But he didn't want to be a D about it. So
To the new rookie, yeah.
Fortunately, Stefanski took care of it.
I would have said if I was Joe Thomas in
Yeah.
that situation, because it's really an impossible situation
Right,
for him.
yeah.
Because what are you going to do? Like you're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they haven't retired your number, but like
They just don't do that in football. So
here's what I would have done if I'm Joe. I'd have said sure, and then I immediately got up and called Coach Stefanski and said, and the EQ guys, and I'd be like, just so you know, this guy's going to come to you and ask for my number, and he has my blessing.
Right.
Do not give him my effing jersey.
Maybe that is what happened.
That could, yeah.
You know, I mean, it should. Kevin Stefanski's aware enough. He ain't letting that happen. Well, didn't it happen with Lawrence Taylor?
Yeah.
Who wanted to wear Lawrence Taylor's number?
56.
Abdul Carter,
Yeah.
the guy they just drafted.
I mean,
and then he called Phil Simms next and asked for 11. That's what he wore.
Is that true?
Yeah. And Phil Simms said no too.
I mean, Phil Simms, that's a different story. He's not like a legendary player. He's a good player.
Super Bowl champion.
but both those numbers are retired.
But Lawrence Taylor is like maybe the greatest defensive
ever.
player in the history of the sport.
Up there.
I mean, the guy was an absolute monster.
Do the Browns-
Can you imagine? He's crazy too. Can you
is.
imagine?
Cocaine's
Oh,
a hell
my
of a
God.
drug, man.
Jim Brown's number's
Yeah.
retired in Cleveland, correct?
I don't even know if his number's retired. I
Hold
feel like I
Hold
don't
on,
know
guys.
retired numbers for football.
stand
If
by.
any number is going to be retired by the Browns, it would be Jim
It'd be Jim
Brown.
Brown,
I don't
right?
even. Who pays attention? That's a baseball thing.
30.
when
All right, you
retire
guys want
numbers.
the jersey numbers that have been retired?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if there are any, it's got to be Jim Brown.
You've
so,
got 14 for Otto,
Yep.
32 for Jim,
Yeah.
45 for Ernie Davis, and then 46 for Don Fleming, and 76 for Lou Graza.
Luke
Rosa.
Rosa.
Like those guys are all ancient players, right? They don't really do that anymore.
Also, other than
Remember, in those days, there wasn't as many players.
Yeah.
So you could retire some numbers and you still have plenty of numbers.
Also,
but-
45 and 46 are not in hot demand by any means either.
No,
Like,
yeah.
how many 45s and 46s do you
Those
see
are
on
long
the
snapper
national-
numbers, man.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying, like-
right.
32 is a real number. There's a lot of 32s.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Running back DB.
14, quarterback, now
Linebacker,
receivers.
Yeah.
But, yeah, 45 and 46. So,
No, not hot commodities.
No.
All right, we'll leave it there. Let's talk some baseball.